Let's do it. Now we're back.
We are. We're back.
Finally.
It's been so fucking long.
It's season 2.
I know, season 2, it's super exciting. There's God, we got so much planned. It seems like so long ago that we started.
Well,
this.
especially for me.
Yeah. There's back, this Luke just got out of rehab. He's been gone for a while.
Just got back.
I mean, look at the guy.
I'm just re-entering Earth's atmosphere.
There's a gutter down the street that he just crawled out of. I was like, be here by 5.
God, okay, so funny story about Hawaii.
Yeah.
So I have this ratty old Hawaii t-shirt I bought in Hawaii like 5 years ago. It's got a hole in the back from when the cat jumped on my back when I was like bending over to grab something. The cat jumps on and tries to kill me. And I'm wearing my ratty old swim trunks, and we make a Costco run because we're staying in a condo. And so the condo we were staying at had shopping carts, ratty old shopping carts. And they weren't actually shopping carts. They said Sugar Beach Resort on them.
But they were all just like...
But they were shopping carts, and they had to be 20 years old.
Fucked up.
Oh, and
rusty.
Just filthy, rusty. They just sit outside in the ocean spray all the
Sugar
time.
Beach.
Sugar Beach. It was amazing. So
it's not the advertising they wanted.
No,
right? Whatever. Yeah.
I don't want anybody
Get better shopping carts. That's what I'd say.
I don't want anybody to go there. So we get back from Costco with $400 of shit for 1 week.
Oh, geez.
Most of it was rum.
They got a I guess this is a dumb question.
It's Maui.
There's Costco's in Hawaii?
At least one in Maui. I don't know. I'm sure there's one everywhere.
I suppose they're everywhere.
So it's the only place you can go to get cheap milk.
How much is milk?
I don't know. We just bought rum. We didn't buy any milk.
Oh, okay.
So we go out and grab the shopping cart.
Why did you say it's the only place to get cheap milk?
That's why everyone says to go there.
Oh.
The rum is also cheap. Dude.
Okay. I was just wondering where that detail came. I was like, where's...
No, so they're... the half gallon of rum was $25 with no liquor tax.
That's pretty good, isn't it?
That's yeah.
Oh yeah. Because isn't a fifth normally 17 or 18?
Yeah, $20 plus liquor tax in this state. So,
and they don't have a liquor tax?
No, they have a bottle tax like recycling.
Yeah,
which is like $1. So it's
I think Oregon has something like that.
Yeah,
so, yeah.
So we go and we come back to the condo and we load the shopping cart full of liquor. Like 24 Coronas, 2 half gallons of rum.
So you basically look like Nicolas Cage in Leaving Las Vegas when he's trying to kill himself.
Probably. I've never seen the movie, but
God, it's great.
So, talk about me living in a gutter. I'm like walking, and my loving wife is walking behind me, just laughing, just about peeing her pants. Like, you look so homeless.
God, and the happiest homeless guy alive.
Oh yeah,
with that
I just scored. So that was that story.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there's this...
No, they said I came out of rehab. Apparently I did.
Yeah. I brought that up there. In Leaving Las Vegas, Nicolas Cage plays this brilliantly, by the way. One of the probably best roles he's ever done is this just hopeless fucking drunk that is trying to drink himself to death. And there's this scene when he's just walking through a liquor store and he's just got fucking grabbing bottles here and there, and it's just shit's falling out of it. It's just amazing.
That's what this looked like.
Yeah.
I haven't seen the movie, but I'll check it out. I'm sure that's exactly what this looked like. Speaking of which, I need to make a drink because I'm out and you're not.
Yeah, so what do you got?
This.
And this is a new segment we're going to be adding in this new season. Is Luke's been hitting... the
bottle?
Hitting, yeah, obviously. Oh God, Luke's he's been studying the bartending arts.
I like how you said that.
It sounds better, I think. It's like when someone's a janitor and they practice the janitorial arts.
A sanitation engineer.
Yeah, it just sounds better. So Luke's gonna be doing some featured drinks and with some alcohols, and this is kind of your thing, man. So tell him. I'm
gonna butcher.
Tell him what's going on.
I'm gonna butcher it right away. But this book, Drinkable Feast, so they can see.
You see?
Yeah, there we go.
Yeah.
I'm sure they can. Written about the 1920s
camera
Paris.
guy that we don't have do close-ups.
I know, because King's working.
Yeah.
Written about 1920s Paris, which was a really cool time in Paris. That was when the reason I found this because when we were talking about Hemingway.
Okay, yeah. You were telling me a little bit about this last night
in the 20s. Yeah, so everyone
just
went over
give
there.
them the listeners a little background about what was some of the things you were telling me.
Mostly the Prohibition. So post World War I, the exchange rate was awesome. So if you made a little bit of American money, you could live very well in Paris or France. And then the Prohibition happened. And so a ton of Americans just moved over to...
Okay, and a stupid question. The, probably really stupid.
Go on.
Prohibition wasn't going on like in other countries too, was it?
No,
I'm assuming we were getting most of our whiskey from like Canada and during the Prohibition, I think.
I think we're making all of our own.
Yeah.
I don't know. I'd have to look into that. But yeah, no, it was just us. We were the only idiots.
Okay.
Which was passed as an amendment, which is the most saddening part of the whole thing.
Yeah, I think we can blame that on the women. Wasn't it the women's temperance
right?
movement? Weren't they the ones?
Yeah.
You sons of bitches. Actually, no, they'd make them actual bitches.
When we tried so hard not to offend people last episode.
Right. Shit. I'm failing already.
It's okay.
Right.
But
most of the stuff I say isn't true anyways. So
like 80% is totally made up.
Oh, God, if I was doing that well, I'd be a fucking all-star. Jesus.
But this book is about the 1920s Paris cocktail scene, and it's actually incredibly interesting. So if you're all interested in drinking or history, it's highly recommended. It's really not that expensive, actually. And great drink recipes mixed in with history, and you kind of get a feel.
That's cool. It does give like a blurb about like how this
pretty much
drink kind of came to be. Or...
Yeah, pretty much everything. Every recipe has at least 2 pages of history with it.
Because there were like a few, like you brought up Hemingway.
Mm-hmm.
Wasn't there like a hotel or a few places that kind of just gave names to drinks that he would sort of have a bartender create for him?
That was at least Cuba, the Hemingway daiquiri.
Okay, all right, yeah. Okay,
These
I knew that was. I thought there was one in Paris also.
The people that were over there.
Oh no, this was how the Bloody Mary came to be.
Oh, the myth of the Bloody Mary.
Yeah, the myth of the Bloody Mary. There's a guy who, like, I guess
that's in here.
He couldn't stand his wife or something.
It's a great story.
So he would have the bartender just make him just some obscene drink so he could deal with her. Is that kind of how?
That was one of the. Mm-hmm. That's in here. You have to read it. Well, we'll come back to that because I want to get the story right because it's hilarious. There's 2 actual stories.
Yeah.
And one of them is that Hemingway's wife at the time, he'd been told by his doctor not to drink. So if he mixed vodka with tomato juice, she couldn't smell it on him because of all the peppers and the spices.
That's it. And his wife was like on him about drinking all the time.
And his wife's name at the time was Mary, so that's why they call it Bloody Mary. That's probably not the story because that wife he had like a decade after Bloody Mary's first started becoming mentioned.
Yeah.
But still a hilarious story.
It's a funny story.
But this one is the Bacardi Cocktail, which I'm going to make with Captain Morgan. So, I just didn't have any. I don't want to go out and buy any today when I woke up.
No, and I'm sure Captain Morgan's would be happy with...
So be thrilled.
All the subscribers we have on our channel.
Right? Someday I'm going to get free liquor from this. That's my whole goal.
We're doing cool stuff on this show, but judging by the subscriptions, you haven't noticed.
Don't worry. Other people have.
Yeah.
So it's a shot and a half of Bacardi or whatever you have laying about.
Mm-hmm.
Just delightful.
And you got this, and Aaron got you this book?
Yes.
Is that it?
Yep. A drinkable feast. A play on the term A Movable Feast written by Ernest Hemingway about Paris.
And it looks like Philip Green, but should we say Philippe? Is that more French?
Well, he's American, so I'm whichever. And then a 3/4 ounce of dry gin.
Yeah. So we had an ounce and a half of rum?
Ounce and a half of rum, 3/4 ounce dry gin.
Okay.
And you do a teaspoon of grenadine.
Oh, okay.
Which a teaspoon is however much you want it to be. I'm almost out. I've been making a lot of these.
So does the grenadine even do anything here, or is it just for color?
It sweetens it.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, right. 1 fluid ounce has 90 calories of sugar, so yeah, so it does a bit.
Yeah,
and then a half ounce.
Keto.
So not keto. Poppy can't.
Poppy would never drink it.
Never drink it.
He would instantly go into a keto rage. The opposite of a keto rage. Maybe
diabetic coma.
Yes, thank you.
That's the one.
All right. There you go.
That's good enough.
Yeah. This is
have to
like,
shrink
it's
it.
like, yes, is Luke shaking the shaker or vigorously masturbating? One of the two. What is it? Hey, Aaron.
Hey.
Yeah, as you guys don't know, I'm so glad to have Luke back. I don't know what I've done without him.
It was a long time away.
I know.
I totally checked out. It was amazing. I haven't disconnected that much from everything in a while.
Well, that's what fucking vacations are for.
It should be. It's so hard to do, though.
Yeah, a lot of times, like, it's... Like, I remember some of the family vacations growing up. Like, I had a Uncle Tom, and he would, like, come in... You'd be up at, like, the lake house, and he'd, like, bust in the morning and be like, all right, it's fun time. Everybody get up. It's time to have fun.
You're one of those
time to have
uncles?
fun. Yeah. And you're just like, just
Right.
It's just forced fun. Just fun.
That's not at all what this one was like. Here, cheers.
Yeah, sweet.
So, yeah, you're missing out. You better
Here we
finish
go.
that.
So there's, it was funny. Well, you were gone. I was
Delicious.
talking my friend Amanda was making fun of me because I was telling her, it was like, we were catching up, and I was like, and then we started hitting on like some serious shit, like fucking ghosts. And I was like,
that's serious.
this is like, I don't care, like, fuck your trip. Like, this has been on my mind for a little while, but it wasn't really on my mind. Some other guys came in and they're like, so just out of curiosity, like, this might be something good for your podcast. Where if you, and this is kind of, I mean, you were there, but just, I guess, to explain.
They
to
need a
people
lot
that-
of background about this.
Yeah. So Luke and I are sitting out at our job, protecting the world, and number one in the world, by the way. That's our current
Best in the world.
Current ranking.
Current ranking.
Nuclear police. But so, all right, a couple of coworkers come in and they're like, "Hey, this might be something good for your podcast." Just out of curiosity, and they're like, we're both like, "Okay, you got our interest."
Right.
If you fuck a ghost and you're currently in like a relationship, I think is kind of how it was put, right?
Mm-hmm.
Not necessarily married, but in a relationship. If you fuck a ghost, is that cheating? And two, this is where it started to get a little more interesting. If you're a dude and the ghost is a dude, does it make you gay?
Or at least bi-curious.
Yeah. And, like, you can't not, like, dwell on that for hours, in my opinion.
We did discuss it with everyone.
Oh, God, we discussed it, I think that was probably around, like, 8, 15. We were talking about it well past 10. I think.
Yeah.
And that's, I mean, obviously he's talking about it now, so it hasn't left my mind there. But, so it, like, yeah, there's so much stuff because, like, and then the first thing that pops into my head, and I think the consensus was that, yeah, it made you gay. Was it?
I don't know if there was a consensus.
Yeah, but, and then, like, the first thing your mind, or at least my mind went, okay, so if I do a tranny, does that make me gay?
No, it makes you tolerant.
Yeah, Twitter says it doesn't. So
Twitter doesn't know.
that's what Twitter's how I gauge all my...
I'm just super curious how, like, my beliefs on ghosts are apparently not that in depth.
No!
I've never once thought that was a possible scenario.
I always kind of did, because in the first Ghostbusters,
Tell me more. I haven't
there is
seen
a
this.
scene, I think Rick Moranis gets raped by a female ghost. I think it's Rick Moranis.
Hashtag it. Me too.
Yeah. So so ever since then, that's kind of been ingrained in my head.
Oh, so this is way less out there than I thought because I had no idea this appeared in pop culture.
Well, that's the only time I've ever seen it. But there's gotta be, it's gotta be like a ghost fucking fetish.
So here's the...
If people fuck horses, fucking ghosts isn't that far out of, like, the realm of possibility, in my opinion. Because I remember the first time I heard, like, of someone getting physically turned on by an animal. Right there in, like, your young mind, you're like, anything's possible, world.
Oh, yeah. Mm-hmm. At that point.
Yeah. like nothing shocks you.
So here's the original thought, right? Like the best fiction is always true. Mm-hmm. The whole Ghostbusters scene.
Oh yeah,
some writer somewhere.
I can see that.
Got raped by a ghost.
Yeah. Uh-huh.
Or raped.
Yeah. No, stop. Please.
Why are you going to stop it?
And we're obviously not making light of...
It's a man getting raped. Nobody cares.
Yeah, exactly.
Nobody
Yeah.
cares.
That's
We're just assuming. We're assuming the writer was a man.
Yeah, exactly.
Could you stop that? Could you prevent...
Could you stop a ghost from... Like if you say no?
I've never... Do they listen?
I don't know. What if it's not an American ghost?
It could be Spanish. Knows the same.
What if safe words are different? There's a lot of...
Pineapple coconut senator.
Yeah. It's like, no shit. What was it? Uno, dos, tres. Start just throwing out like random... Eins, drei, five, just 99999.
That might work. But I mean, no, physically, could you stop it? I don't know how ghosts work. I've never.
I don't either. I mean, I kind of started reading those, like Lesser and Greater Keys of Solomon. But that's about like dealing with demons and stuff like that.
That's different. So, that's not at all the same.
Very, very different. I think.
I think the rules are totally different.
Yeah, and then like one of the other things I brought up was like, if it's not taking like a male or female form and it's just like a specter, I think is what they call it, like when it's just like a floating like thing, and you fuck that, or it fucks you.
We need a third. We need like Delvaux or something. We need a third person on this.
I know. Or Poirier. Poirier would be great.
He would be. We'll have to get him off camera.
Yeah. I think I've sold him on that idea. Delvaux said he would come, and I told him I would pay him $20 an hour to be our cameraman.
That's awesome. Mm-hmm. It's good.
Yes, and I told him he could bring our kid over. Just as long as the social worker's with him.
He's following your child, so he needs the money.
He's doing a horrible job of raising him, apparently. Okay, for the record, I do not have a child that I know of. There is. Okay, that's...
Oh, Lord.
Uh-huh.
I think we decided it was cheating.
Yeah, we did, yeah.
And it was
cheating.
Also bi-curious. Unless you do it too often, then it's just gay.
Yeah, if you do it once in a while, you're just a couple of kids having fun.
Just dabbling.
Uh-huh. It's like, it's like when you're in college. Yeah, you have sex with a lot of people.
That's if you're bored to death, discuss that with your coworkers.
Yeah,
or maybe not, depending on where you work.
Yeah, and you guys wonder how we came up with this fucking name for the show.
Bored to death. That's exactly where it spawned from.
But so the craziness but it's kind of speaking of that, like it's this is such a fun median. Like I love it. I would encourage everyone, if you can. Luke and I recently, I mean, we've obviously been doing this for a little while now. But we recently stumbled upon an app, website, service called Anchor that actually helps small podcasts like us get on some other sites to kind of branch out a little bit. Like they help you get on.
Well, the background is that we called this a podcast from the beginning, and then we realized having a podcast was incredibly difficult and much easier. Just start a YouTube channel.
Yeah, and it really is. There's to people out there that have kind of considered it and look at like the thing, like the a host, a server, and then sending your stuff to iTunes or Spotify and getting like yay or nay on them, things like that. If like that's one of the discussions Luke and I had, and we're just like, well, our first thought was like, okay, we'll create a website and we'll just upload it on there,
right?
And then we're like, well, that costs money.
Yeah, and
I'm a Jew. So then I can't really think of it. We're like YouTube.
Oh yeah.
And it's, you can jump through all those hoops. You can just get your shit up. You can create, especially if you're a visual person, you can create awesome content and get it right there. But this cool site, Anchor is what it's called, is they do a lot of that shit for you. You upload your audio. They even give you an opportunity to shop for sponsorships for your podcast. And there's no minimum viewership for those. There's a requirement for you to get paid, but not a requirement for you to have ads, which gives you like a professional look on your podcast if that's what you're going for. Which
we totally are.
Yeah, right? We're so professional. Hashtag not. And it gets you to some awesome platforms like iTunes, Spotify. I think there's 3 other ones that they shoot you out to. They're ones I hadn't heard of most, but Spotify and iTunes are the 2 biggest ones. And so it's great service. And if you guys ever thought about doing this, it's a great medium to kind of discuss things, especially if you got like, one of your best friends that you just like, bouncing shit off of each other.
Right. And it's cool to just record it because we have done this for years.
Yeah.
But now they're actually logged and you can always go back and revisit them or see them or watch them. And it's actually pretty cool to record like that sort of data because nobody writes in diaries anymore because that's lame.
Oh, it is. It ends up sort of being like an audio diary.
Which is way easier.
Like, what was I thinking at that time? What was going on in the world?
I was wondering if you fuck a ghost. Is it cheating? Like, there's so many
things like that should be revisited.
Boy.
Because when that ghost fucks you, like, you don't want to sit there just being confused.
Right.
You want to know.
You saw this coming.
Yeah. Thank you. You're welcome. All right?
Do it.
God.
It's more fun if more people do it.
Right. And another cool thing is, like, you can sit back and you can kick back and, like, sometimes I'll watch old ones and sort of study them. Like I studied film when I played football and stuff, and like see things that like I like what we're doing and cringe at others. And you can kind of see like, oh God, like I thought that or I said that, like, and it's kind of, you're like, ooh, like I need to do a little self work.
You can never run for public office.
Or definitely like be like, I thought of running for public office, but I definitely shouldn't.
No,
it's And a lot of things, like a lot of great feedback I get from my brother and one of my best friends in the world, Gabe, is like a lot of the facts you state aren't necessarily true. And so you should really watch that, or just be definitely cite your sources that you're getting from stuff. And I'm like, yeah, that's a good point.
That's the hardest thing about discussing stuff on the air, though.
Because
as soon as you record it, then it's real, and you're like, dude, that's not true. And so, I realized how much of the shit I say is completely like, it's not made up. I'm trying to recall from my completely fallible memory from 2 months or 2 years or 18 years ago. Like, I read this somewhere, and you just change a little bit of 4 details, and all of a sudden it's nowhere near true.
Yeah, and it's the brain, and we learned a bit about those when we discussed bias and like how we think, and like in I think you got a copy of Kahneman's book, Thinking Fast and Slow.
It's hiding off stage.
Yeah, it's like the brain just wants to make connections.
It has to.
And it doesn't, it has to, and it doesn't care how.
Nope.
It's just like, it'll be like I don't know, beer, go fuck a monkey. Or something, and it's just like, and you're just like, okay, just, that's not exactly how it works. It's an extreme example.
Hopefully it's extreme.
Yeah. Did I just reveal something about myself?
Maybe. I don't know.
We're all primates, Luke. It's not weird.
This explains the 2nd season of Friends.
Okay. Yeah. Thank you. We have discussed monkeys. But anyway, so Anchor, guys, if you, like I said, Luke and I would definitely suggest anyone that's thought about it to start this. It's cool to have a dialogue. It's cool to have your friends on. And it's, if nothing else, it breeds good conversation.
Dude, and talking about having your friends on, like, not that we've had too many on yet, but it's easier, or maybe like more fun, or maybe people are more interested in it. Like we were talking to Unzer last night, like, hey man, come on our podcast and talk about Sasquatch.
Which would be awesome. Yeah.
Which will happen.
Yeah.
because there are short changes, they're long change. So that'll be a short change podcast.
Yeah, there's a few short change podcasts we'll have to have, yeah.
But, and they're totally into it. And if you were like, hey, man, come over, have some beers and talk about Sasquatch, maybe less exciting for them? I don't know. I've never asked. I'm just assuming people are more into, like,
being
internet famous for
I haven't. I feel like a lot of people would like to come on just because I constantly get, like, friends or even people that aren't necessarily friends, but just like I know pretty well. Like, oh, you guys should do this. Or you guys should talk about this. And I'm like, well, fucking come on. They're like, no. Just like, it's okay.
Do you tell them you can be off camera?
Like we don't talk about fucking kids and worshiping Satan or something.
No, we're just talking about fucking ghosts. And
yeah, which is way more acceptable.
Not oddly, but yes. Way like, and that's almost like a morally neutral subject. That's not even broached in most religions.
You pedophiles out there, you cannot fucking kid ghosts, though. Okay, so get that out of your heads right now.
No.
So you gotta lay some ground rules right off the bat.
You gotta have rules.
Yeah.
Oh god, I need another drink.
This isn't lawless. What is this lawlessness? God. But we've what else I was gonna bring on? Oh, I'm sure Menace Brewing wants me to talk about him after that.
Maybe let's cut it right here.
I'll just do quick. I just wanted to bring up one more thing before we take a quick break. Menace Brewing in Bellingham, Washington, one of the awesomest breweries that's around. You got the guys running it. You got the Flood Brothers. They're kicking ass. And Joe Jeffries, they're running the brewery. Some of the best beers I've ever had. Luke.
Amazing. And good atmosphere. Great food.
It's great. Yeah. Everything in there
pretty much
has been reconstituted or was handmade by Ben and Tom Radin. They those are the guys that started it.
Pulled that lumber out of the pier.
Craftsmanship, yeah, amazing. But like I said, the Flood Brothers and Joe Jeffries are running that, and the local public house and the Annex in Bellingham, Washington, doing great things. They have hard drinks now at the local public house that you can get, which is cool.
They didn't have that when I was there.
Yeah, they got a liquor license and some of the best beer I've had. And you got a lot of choices, especially in that area.
What was that refrigerator beer? Was that what it's called?
Was that the one you had at?
Oh my god, it was so good.
Menace, that was
the refrigerator beer.
I think so. Yeah, I'm not exactly sure what they have on tap, but I have not had a bad beer there.
No, neither did I. And I had them all in one day.
When I worked really closely with Ben and Tom, I took liberties of drinking a lot of it. Yeah. So, ever wonder why our profits were down? It's because you hired a closet alcoholic. Anyway, so you guys gotta check it out. Like I said, one of the best breweries, local, some incredible food, great chef, and really friendly, knowledgeable staff also. So check that out when you guys get a chance. That is Menace Brewery over in the Meridian District in Bellingham, Washington. Yeah, it is a brewery. And the local public house in the Annex, which is just on Railroad Avenue, right across the street from the bus station. And love you guys. Keep kicking ass. All right, we'll take a quick break.
I'm out. And you're not, loser.
I know. Well, I'm just drinking Spindrift like a coward.
All right. That's why I need ovens. If I'm alone, I have no idea what to talk about. No. Thank God he's coming.
All right.
You ready? Yeah. Pop those Percocets.
Ah!
Woo!
I am so high. I mean, you really don't need to sleep if you have enough cocaine.
I've heard.
Yeah.
Sadly, I don't know, but
allegedly,
maybe someday.
So, welcome back, guys. I hope you enjoyed that advertisement from our sponsors. What did we come here today to talk about?
Whatever we want. I'm just re-entering. I don't care.
Yeah.
If we don't discuss the thing we started talking about that I'm good with it,
Luke is just coming back into the civilized world.
dude, I turned off. Like, the only thing that happened was when I would search for the tide report and the surf report, or the tide charts and the surf report. Sometimes Google would be like, maybe you're interested. I'm like,
maybe you're interested.
you know I'm in Hawaii.
You'd be like, maybe I'm not.
we need somebody, not we don't.
Yeah.
Para should. Somebody needs to create with an app called like the vacation app and totally change how the OS on your phone works.
I would love to work with him on this. Guys, we're talking about Mick Para.
He's so excited you mentioned his name.
Google him. His address is...
I have his phone number here. Let me get his...
But like a totally like brilliant dude. And he'd... I was about to say, you wouldn't think it, but I didn't mean it that way. I was like, no.
No, that was a positive.
Super smart. Super smart guy. Hilarious. But on the other hand, it's like a side of him that, you would never guess. Like designs applications and actually has
like
some
programming.
a cool software program, logistical program that him and his business partner designed.
He could totally come up with an app.
Oh, I think so too. It's just a matter of the tough thing with apps. I remember doing some research a few years ago. Like your startup costs on those are like, you might as well be starting like a large brick and mortar corporation. They can be anywhere, on the low end, like a few $100,000 to millions.
No, maybe not.
Yeah.
But still a vacation app. Somebody with money should come up with an app where you go on vacation and you turn on that app, and until you turn it off, it doesn't give you news. It doesn't give you anything but the weather of where you are.
Like again, like an app that maybe blocks other apps from
Instagram,
doing your
Facebook,
updates or something
Twitter,
like that.
Everything just
filter like
Cuts it off.
an app that like filters the other apps, like put it. And I kind of thought about something like that also, like that does like it blocks or gives you like, I don't know, alerts of like, if there's upsetting news you don't want to see or something like that.
So that was the thing.
Words. And the one I was thinking about was like, if you're like drunk and you're posting on social media like late at night or something, and you're going on some like racist, homophobic rant or something like that, like when you hit send, it like just gives, as all the app does is like searches for keywords that are gonna get you in trouble,
and it just delays it for 12 hours.
Or it just is like, are you sure, or like, do you want to like, that's literally all it does. And you'd be like, yes, of course I'm sure. Boom. And then it will be like, are you really sure? And so it'll give you 2 shots, maybe more. It could be up to 10. Because you might be really fucking like, really on it. But, so that's my app idea.
I like it.
I think it's got potential.
I hope somebody who knows programming watches this show and does that. I'm uncomfortable with everything I've ever thought of. If someone else did it, I'd be fine.
Yeah, I just fucking don't know. Like, I don't have the time or the money. I've got the time.
God, no.
I do have the time. I could probably just like solve like hunger and world peace while sitting at work.
Yeah, that actually might be true.
Yeah, there's
That actually might be
I
true.
mean, there's it's about probably 70%.
Maybe we shouldn't talk about.
Yeah. That's a good point.
Talk about something else. What
Guys,
else are
we
we
do
going to talk about?
stuff. We work for the government, and cocaine's encouraged in our secret department.
That's delightful.
Yeah, it's not really. But so what we kind of started talking about, or
Originally,
what we were going to talk about was there's a lot of wacky shit going on in the world right now. Stuff that, I don't know, I guess you and I have been around long enough to sort of feel like, even though it seems to exponentially get more ridiculous, kind of, or at least I have gotten almost in this state of mind that this is kind of maybe the new normal.
yeah, I think it is.
And in trying to, with some of the studies I've doing on a lot of Hinduism, since I've gotten more involved in like Ram Dass's teachings and stuff like that, and like how I can personally coexist, with these happenings and sort of a chaotic existence that's going on right now. Some other philosophies can help you do that too. And one of them we started to talk about was probably in response to this sort of new chaotic world that we're living in that's doesn't necessarily have more or less challenges than we've had in the past, but there are different challenges than we've never had before, I don't think, to this extent.
Yeah, probably. Yeah, it might have happened at some point.
There's some parallels between some other.
There's definitely some similarities, but it is pretty wild.
Mm-hmm. There's I think it's the level. The probably biggest difference is I think when logic is the way logic is used, I think is used only at a level of convenience now.
Yeah, I think I can agree that's true.
Yeah, and the level of outrage and emotion
is annoying at this point.
Yeah, it's like you could be, and people not focusing that outrage and using it in a positive way a lot, just using the outrage and being outraged. And I've said before in past podcasts, like if you're passionate about something and emotional, like that's good. I've done, and you've done a lot of research on like the Kahneman, Dan Ariely, the new book, reading the Philosopher's Guidebook, one of the great courses that they offer on. I think that's what the series is called, the Great Courses, but. They go into and they talk about it a lot, and we'll get into this later in Stoicism. Like you actually, there's a certain level of stress and emotion that is really required to do something positive and to take some action. Mm-hmm. But it's just like once you get past that tipping point of where it becomes like, okay, it's good, moving, boom. Okay, we went fucking overboard.
Right, went too far.
Yeah, and it's it seems like we're seeing a lot more of that.
I think so.
And in response to that, some philosophies are kind of making, not that they ever left, but kind of making more of a mainstream comeback.
Do you want to talk about they never left, right? But
they never left, but I guess they're becoming more. I feel like they're working their way into the mainstream.
So we talked about this a little bit earlier. Like, you and I was freshman in college before I even took one course or class or even heard about philosophy. Philosophy was, if anything, glossed over in world history. Like, Socrates, Plato, Aristotle. Okay, you're done. And you never learned about what they thought or like the wildness of their ideas for the time.
Yeah.
And just gloss over it. And then you get to college and all of a sudden you learn about philosophy and it's like, man, I could have really used this 10 years ago. It's just a way to think or a way to handle the world as it happens. And the fact that those philosophies from, hundreds or thousands of years ago are still incredibly valid and can handle the world as it is today as easily as they did 2,000 years ago. And the fact that those philosophies are making a comeback isn't, in my opinion, thanks to education at all. It's just because of probably social media, I would guess. Like,
probably it's
somebody passionate about those philosophies has created a page on some social media outlet, and then people have seen it and liked what they saw and subscribed to it, and then they get a daily dose of whatever that philosophy is. And it's kind of unfortunate that that's just the education system as it stands. Not even like the public, but even like college. You can make it through college without taking a philosophy course.
Which is odd. Yeah, I remember when I was going to college, the only way you may get forced to take a philosophy class was if your freshman year, your general university requirement for mathematics, you could take this one class or you could take this other class that was split into two things, and it was like algebra, something or other, and then philosophy 102, which is like mathematical philosophy or something. And that was the only.
That was it.
That was it. That was the only. That was the only general university requirement. And after you do your GRs, obviously you can do whatever the fuck.
Mine was an elective, and I thought it was going to be easy, and it was the hardest class I ever took.
Oh, I failed philosophy 102.
Dude, my first exam, I failed. He ended up giving me a.
Yeah.
God, I think I did all right because after that, after I failed that first test, it was like, oh God, this is not easy. Mm-hmm. And then once I actually started studying, I actually got super into it, and I ended up doing all right. But it's like when I finally learned how my brain worked, as far as like learning, I was at my third college. It was I'd gone from Point Loma to Mountain Hood Community College to Columbia Basin, and it was at that college I finally learned how to learn. And after that, tests became much easier.
Yeah, and for me, it was probably I didn't really start to probably think critically at all until about my sophomore, junior year in college when I started getting into some upper level theater and anthropology classes.
Yeah.
And just when, like, for some reason, like, a few things, like, switched on in my mind. Like, one of them was, and I'll touch on it again later, with speaking of philosophy, it was a guy that's known as the godfather or father of modern theater, Konstantin Stanislavski. And what was the other one? I'm
gonna be no help to you.
And the other one was getting into a thing about discussing prehistoric or modern Homo sapien and the possible, and this was back in probably 1999, before it actually seemed to be proven, when DNA testing started to get a lot more accurate, that with when it came to inbreeding of Neanderthal and modern Homo sapien.
Oh, right.
And and I was pretty proud of myself, because at that time, based on the knowledge, you looked at overlapping areas and people living co-inhabiting an area for hundreds, if not thousands of years. And you're like thinking like, okay, I'm a dude, I'm in college, I'm fucking horny all the time. Like, I will fuck anything that moves. I'm pretty sure some dude got drunk one night and fucked a Neanderthal. Like, it's not like beyond the realm of possibility.
Dude, if he was anywhere between 14 and 30, he didn't have to get drunk.
And I wrote a paper on it. And that was about, like, no fucking exaggeration. It's about how I worded it too.
I believe that.
Let's be honest, dudes will fuck anything.
Yeah.
And it was the first A I ever got on anything. And he had, like, my teacher was this great fucking old stoner that went on these archaeological digs all the time, and he wrote a few books. I wish I could remember his name. I mean, he actually made a huge impact on me, but I wish I could remember his name. I have a friend, Ben Larner, that can double check on that. But yeah, and he had a bunch of great feedback, and I was like, no fucking way. Because, like, I was like barely a C student my entire life.
Just play football.
Yeah, I just played football, and I was like, I'm gonna be a pro. Blah blah blah. Fuck it, whatever. And that was not close to the case at all. Subsequently, when I was in high school, to get a bunch of like other requirements dropped so I could take extra weightlifting classes, I had a meeting with the vice president and my trainer that I had hired outside of him to let me take more PE classes, because that was career development, because I was going to be a professional athlete. And they signed off on it.
They're like, we're winning the championship this year, boys.
Yes. And I went on to have the worst year I've ever had in my life in football.
You can try too hard.
I did. I tried too hard. Probably trained and ran. One of my best friends, Gabe, you've heard me talk about, he was my training partner. We probably worked out 4 hours a day.
That sounds awful.
I probably ate like 10,000 calories. Gabe was the guy that I went and we split like 16 Big Macs in between 2 days. Yeah.
Oh God.
Yeah, we each ate 8 of them.
Oh my God.
Yeah, you should have seen the lady's face when we made our order. It's just like, okay, 16. What? Like, what the fuck is wrong with you two?
She's just waiting for 14 other people to show up.
Yeah. And there's
At least 6 other people.
there's like another time, like at my football coach's car wash that I worked at. I would go to McDonald's and get like a 6-pack of cheeseburgers and 3 large fries. It was a special thing they ran.
Right. Yeah, that was great.
And there were these 2 guys like straight out of Mexico that worked in the detail shop there, and here I am walking in, big dude, like eating probably what their family eats in a week, you know, and they're just like 6 hamburguesas, like, like, are you loco? Like, what the fuck? They're oh god, they're the Jose's. They were both Jose something, but
Jose and Jose B.
They were both Jose's. Yeah. I got that reference.
When I was an electrician, yeah, we had a couple of those.
But not to get too far off the beaten path, but
I think we're there.
Yeah, we're off. Sorry.
The education system is failing.
It's going down. It's going down a rough path. I know, like both of our mothers were teachers. Your mom is still
is for a couple more years.
Yeah. Okay, so we've got some pretty intimate knowledge of the obstacles that they have to deal with.
And it's getting worse.
Yeah, and it's getting tougher. The administrators and voters, levies, are not helping their cause. And the expectations the greater expectations that are being put on educators with less and less support.
Right.
And less, what essentially counts to less pay, because I know, at least in the state of Washington, they didn't get what equates to like a cost of living adjustment for nearly a decade.
It was a while.
Yeah. So it's
so they have this new thing in Washington, where if a student acts out badly enough, instead of correcting that student, you just take every other student and you leave the classroom and let him just have his rant on his own. That's the thing. That's no joke.
That's just odd.
It's just negative, positive reinforcement. However that works. It's like positive reinforcement of bad behavior.
Yeah, and and let's be honest, it starts at home.
Oh, yeah.
So don't be fucking shitty parents. All right?
Says the 2 guys without kids.
Yeah. But it's us guys without kids that got to deal with your shitty kids. So quit raising shitty kids. God, I'm not asking for world peace.
No, because that'd be too much.
Be a fucking decent parent.
Oh, it is terrible.
If a kid showed up on my front doorstep tonight, I would do a better job than a lot of fucking parents are doing right now.
I believe it.
I
It's a bold claim, though.
I know.
I hope
I'm really talking out of my ass.
Yeah,
There, but
you'd be fine.
I think I could. I could.
Mean, discipline would
I've
be a
done
problem.
a wonderful job with my dog.
It's great. He's got 3 legs.
It's basically
He's almost
like
a
a child. Yeah.
Oh, God, we've gotten so far off.
But
That's fine, though.
So kind of to steer us back in the right direction.
Are we going to?
I'm going to attempt to
Let's
at least. Do it. So because of all the shit that's going on, we've had, as you stated, they never went away, but they've kind of sort of went into like the,
Just untaught history?
well, untaught history, or in like smaller circles of people, right. Like with a lot of like the people that are getting into like sort of more of the mystical side of the world and things like that. Like that definitely was those, like, you didn't talk about that stuff back, even like a decade ago, or if you did it was in a small circle of friends. And now you see like stuff on social media, like people posting about like, astrology and like manifesting and like being more in touch with like your like the Wiccan side of like spirituality and nature and things like that. And that's coming more mainstream. And along with that, like Zen Buddhism and Hinduism and a lot of that cultural philosophy and way of life is starting to come back in the mainstream. And along with that, a sort of forgotten deal that's come as well, and that's Stoicism. Mm-hmm. And you know more about that than I do. What happened?
Nope, good. Nope, I was looking at the wrong screen.
Oh, okay.
I thought we stopped recording. Probably not much at this point. You've done a lot of research. So this was the book that introduced me to Stoicism, Marcus Aurelius Meditations.
Oh, okay, so you do have that.
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, this was a great... But my interest in Stoicism had nothing to do with the history of it. It was just an interesting read.
Well, what maybe tell us like what is it? Because I know like as like an observer, like I'm thinking like when I think of like Stoic, I think of like, you know, a statue, like an emotionless,
Right.
you know,
So I wish I would have...
sociopath almost, like
there's
which
a
I
point,
accuse you of being constantly.
there's a point where being emotionless is regarded as bad, and probably is. I wish I would have taken the notes. The word Stoicism came from the name of the building where
It's like the stoa, like a porch.
Well, so yeah,
something.
it was the pillars of the public square, basically, where you have a different name than I do. I'm gonna use my name because I can pronounce mine. Zeno of Cyprus.
Okay.
He taught his students in front of a certain porch, and the name of the inscriptions on that pantheon almost were called something that had. If you shortened it, it turns into Stoic.
Yeah.
Google that one if you can find it. It's on YouTube. We'll post a link. But that's where the name came from. And
Can
then
we jump on the computer, or is that fuck this up?
No, it's a YouTube video though. I wouldn't be able to find it.
Oh, okay. All right.
That's so all the meanings or the uses of Stoic since then refer to that. Like that is the root definition. Everything after that is sort of referring to the belief system or the philosophy. And I was actually thinking today, I was like, man, because after the last topic of gender differences, which is just a shit show.
Interesting, and we just barely scratched the surface.
Well, it gets so dangerous to do more than that because you're going to offend so many people.
Yeah,
And-
it's one thing I'd like to get into that a lot of good feedback I heard from people is like, okay, these things like there's these differences, but like, okay, physiologically, like maybe why are they? Which
that'd
is
be
way
fun.
beyond like I'd have to delve deep into some neuroscience.
We'd need a guest.
Yeah. That's something that definitely have to wait like an actual subject matter expert. Not
That'd be fun. We should try to find one. But I was thinking about this today or yesterday. I was like, man, the best thing about talking about Stoicism is you can't offend anybody because you can't offend a Stoic. No matter what we said on here, we could say
that
the
would
most.
be very unstoic of them.
It's perfect.
Yeah.
It's the greatest thing to discuss ever because no matter what you said about it, if they were offended, like here's a quote because I wrote these two down because they amused me, and not amused me in a bad way. Amused because I'm a big fan of Stoicism, but oh god, his name Epictetus.
That sounds familiar.
Yeah, he's the guy. He said, if someone succeeds in provoking you, realize that your mind is complicit in the provocation.
Ha! It really is.
Like,
and
I'm offended. It's like, your mind's half at fault. Like it's at least half you.
right, and it kind of ties into what we talked a few episodes back in season 1 when we're talking about like words, like words have the power that you imbue in them.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
And it's like if you're gonna say something shitty to somebody, the onus is really on you. And it's taking
halfway.
I would go as far as to say it's 100% on you.
Sure.
To like your actions, like obviously there's for every action there's a reaction, but that reaction is completely dependent on you.
That's true.
And that reaction is going to be the thing that actually makes the difference.
Yeah.
So it's there. So in that way, like a Stoic philosophy, like that Stoic philosophy is, I think is 100% fucking right on.
Oh yeah.
Like
and entirely too unpopular. I wish more people were Stoics.
That's a
so much
real
easier.
disconcerting thing is that there's kind of with this. I know I keep saying chaotic. I need to find a better word. I need a better vocabulary. I need like
Dude,
a living thesaurus. But
chaotic synonyms.
Yeah. So like in this sort of like
I think shit show
shit show.
is
Thank
a
you.
synonym.
Yeah, not a shit hole.
No, that's racist.
Yeah, we're not talking about countries here.
Or cities.
Yeah.
Not talking about San Francisco.
Yeah. Which is a beautiful city. Some spots. Don't lose your train of thought, Heath. Don't lose your train of thought.
It's already gone.
It's there. Fuck, it's gone.
Moving on.
Yeah, where to?
Wherever you want.
What were we talking about just now?
We were talking about not offending Stoics. Your mind being more than half
Oh, okay.
at fault.
I know where we're going.
Hey,
Okay,
nailed
so
it, found it.
with the with kind of this interesting. I'll just say this interesting energy that exists now with action and reaction that people have. The onus on one's own actions has been removed.
Yeah, and that's disappointing.
Right. And it's like they're not like you just like when you brought up that example, I think that's what got me thinking on it. Like when you brought up that example of if someone's acting out, everyone else is just directed
yeah, like leave the room.
to leave the room and
Because that's good learning.
and let that person own that space, which is just an encouragement to act out.
Right, like
And it's like if
and some expert thought of this. And not only that,
that's really disconcerting.
a bunch of other experts were like, that's a good idea.
Mm-hmm. And this goes along with the same stuff is like if I'm like, yes, I believe we should celebrate uniqueness and in like the beauty that it has, but also along with that comes don't for one fucking second think that the world needs to conform to you.
Yeah, that's a weird belief.
So that's
The cosmos.
so
must
there's
yield to me.
it's beautiful. You are who you are. It's not. I won't say brave because I think that's the most over fucking used word ever. I used it in a prior episode and I kind of cringe at it now because bravery I reserve for doing something extraordinary.
That might actually cause physical harm.
So if you're just being yourself, that's admirable.
Oh, I like that word.
And so it's
you don't need a thesaurus at all.
No. So there's so those kind of things are admirable, but along with being admirable, don't expect admiration.
That's very
So,
stoic of you.
There's just that. And those are some things I've thought of, and that's one of the things that really I'll be honest, they piss me off. Like when I see people that have expectations. And this is the very unstoic thing of me is I should not be irritated by that, but I think mostly the irritation comes with like I'm irritated at the fact that you're setting yourself up for such failure.
Yeah, and sort of like if that sort of mentality becomes widespread, it becomes the failure of a society or the failure of a generation, and that's probably the most concerning thing. It's one thing for 1 or 2,000 to be whatever. But when the majority becomes something that's detrimental to a generation, that becomes like...
Right, and there's... we're not like saying... like, shoot for the stars. Get emotional about what you want to accomplish.
Yeah.
And things like that, but that's all on you. You know? No one else needs to support you. No one else is obligated to do a goddamn thing.
That's
you get emotional about it because there's been a ton of psychological studies done on that. Like emotion is almost necessary to take action in an instance. But
I think it's completely necessary.
Yeah, but when there's a point where you get diminishing returns on too much emotion.
Yeah,
and that's where you need to be careful. And so when have high aspirations, but that's the challenge, is to have high aspirations but zero expectations.
That is the challenge.
It'd be similar like if you give someone a gift and expect something. Like Ram Dass has this.
So no, you were the one that told me about that.
Yeah, there's like, are you like when you, and it comes from Gandhi's, like think of your next action and think what good that does to the poorest person in the world. Like if I'm going to help, like give something to a homeless person, like am I doing that so I can get a currency exchange of feel good?
Right.
Or am I just doing that because it is?
Well, you were the one that told me the mentality or the philosophy of have high expectations of yourself and low expectations of others. Mm-hmm. And that's that's very stoic. Like that's like you demand the world of yourself. Mm-hmm. Like you are going to behave, you're going to do your role, you're going to play your part, you're going to do what your duty is without any expectation of reparations or payment of any sort, admiration, acknowledgement, nothing. Like you do you. Like this is your job, this is what you're born to do, this is why you do it, and that's the only reason you do it. And that has to be the hardest thing. And then to turn that around and be like, but don't expect that of others. No, they're fallible. They do what they do. And part of the reason you have to do what you do is because they might not act correctly, or the universe is telling them to do something else. But it's your job to do everything you can do, and that's it.
Because we all have different things that are aligning us, and different things. Like everyone's got a different value set.
Yeah,
like,
that's hard.
Yeah, and like Anthony Robbins goes into it quite a bit, and he's like, there's a hierarchy, like a hierarchy of values, and that's if some people's are different, that's when it comes into play where you've got to try to empathize, and I think we've touched on this as well. Kind of try to step inside their worldview and see, like, even though, and this is incredibly challenging, because a lot of times you'll see something that's just completely ridiculous, but you also got to see, like, okay, I am only seeing things through my own eyes, and the free will or lack of free will and actions that have molded my brain and to see the world this way.
Right.
And that's and I can't unsee the world like that. So the only thing I can try to do is imagine, conceptualize, and try to visualize what that worldview is, from your background.
Right. Is that weird that because we learn about the word bias, bias, like bias is a word when you're in middle school or whatever. And it refers to merely a predisposition to a viewpoint. That's all it refers to. Like that's like, oh, I favor this, or I favor this. And then all of a sudden you grow up and you realize, like, bias, the meaning of that is so much greater. And once you understand that, then you can understand the difference in viewpoints as a whole between other people. Like you see someone and you're like, what the hell? And you're like, it's bias. Like this is a culmination of their entire life. Like this point is why they view the world this way, is because of this. And we're not taught that either. God, the public school system.
Yeah, and it goes in like that book. I'm gonna try to bring it up.
Find it.
Which I'd recommend to a lot of people
people.
So yeah,
a lot of people.
Several reasons, probably most namely in its focus on. It's a book on philosophy. It's one of the great courses. Which, we've all got a little time to get smarter.
I try.
So yeah, so
not going well.
I suggest Audible. It's fantastic. Definitely a lot of audiobooks, some great selections. But this is a Philosopher's Toolkit: How to Be the Most Rational Person in Any Room. And
as if that's a selling point. Yeah. Like, oh, this is a benefit.
Yeah, and it's like, a selling point. Like, I'm going to send you a tool of rationality in one of the most unrational times we've lived in.
Right. Because no one else in the room is going to be rational at all.
But there's a great marketing opportunity for that. And there's kind of like I don't want to go too far. Or if we can touch on some more of this
Do
stuff.
whatever you want. We got time. We can split into 2 episodes. We can do whatever we want.
Well, I kind of want to go back to like how maybe some of this Stoic thought came to be, and it's sort of like what was going on historically speaking, and some background of how a certain type of thinking and kind of the first, I guess, written accord, besides some of like the Vedic texts of kind of giving us a map of not just what to think, but how to think, which is which is the beginning of critical thinking.
Which is way different than what to think.
You're right. Yeah. Like if someone's just telling you that's what the church does.
Oh God, we got religion.
I know. That's
no.
And I struggle with it too because I'm a practitioner of one of the big ones, but
He's not a Catholic.
it is. Yeah, it is what it is. What it is. I'm finding it's more nuanced than I once. Let's just say this. I'm glad I stumbled upon Kabbalic texts because that kind of swerves into the mystical world that I feel more drawn to.
Well, there you go.
So it's so I'm glad those exist. But anyway, so around so go back. Let's jump in a time machine.
2 hours ago.
Yeah.
Where have we been?
Let's go back to 480.
No,
Longer than 480.
Yeah, you gotta be at least 300.
So we're going back to basically the first kind of interesting thing. Basically, the point I'm going to make, and I'm just gonna tell you now, and I'll make the connections kind of as we go. There's a lot of this philosophy is one of the benefits of imperialistic conquest.
Go on.
Is a spreading of culture and ideas, which is a much quicker way of getting like the diaspora expanding. And with that imperialistic conquest was Darius the Third, the father of Xerxes, who was probably the biggest expansionist in that reign of Persian kings that spread the extent of the Persian Empire, went all the way into Greece, down to Egypt, the entirety of the Middle East, all the way over deep into India and parts of what is now China, I think Indochina, like Vietnam, Cambodia, right. Those areas.
All one empire.
Yeah, like fucking crazy. And it's almost right, as far as size, almost came close to rivaling the Roman Empire at its height. Which,
yeah, I'm surprised it's not bigger, honestly.
Yeah, as far as landmass, maybe just because the Middle East is so expansive, and the Roman Empire was most of the Mediterranean up into Scotland, and they got into slightly into what is now modern day Iran, under I believe it was I brought his name up earlier, the one of the 5 good emperors. Didn't I Google him earlier?
No, I think you did way earlier. Not Aurelius or Commodore.
Yeah, he was wasn't one of those guys. It was come on, motherfucker. Shit.
Anyhow, an emperor. We'll Google him. We'll post a link.
Throw out random Latin names.
I don't know any.
Anyway, so going on with the expansion of the Persian Empire, like I said, a lot of that with that comes an expansion of philosophy and ideas and things like that. And one of those is pretty interesting, is because around 500 or 600 BC, when in that area from Greece over all the way to, I believe it was the Zhou dynasty in China, a very similar philosophical thought started to come to be. And you had Confucianism over on the Far East. You had Hinduism and Buddhism had been around for about 2,500 years at that point.
Which is crazy.
That's fucking.
They've been around forever.
Yeah, I think those are the oldest texts. Those are some of the crazy like alien texts. Like when we do like watch our like crazy alien conspiracies, like those. I think they're called like the King's tablets or something like that, where they talk about
those are them
from like millions of years ago or something like that.
Yep, those are them.
They had and the only reason they could do that is because they were one of the first those ancient Hindus were some first to use like the mathematics and powers of 10 and 100 and things like that, and so they
which is lost on the Americans.
And it's that's one of the crazy things is how so much of that stuff got lost for 2,000 years,
right?
Pretty much before it came up. But so, but also you had an explosion of similar ideas in ancient Greece, where you had ideas. You had cynicism, Epicureanism, Stoicism, most notably, skepticism, Neapolitanism, all going on during Hellenistic Greece. And those all, Epicureanism, their Stoicism kind of took some things from all of those, but they all have some pretty similar tenets. And those are... Thank you for being patient with me.
I wish I had something to say. I'm just watching like the rest of us.
Well, it's just and I'm trying to have an organized train of thought. There's so much information that
it's a lot of information. You would have to put out like a script.
Gets a lot of depth. So some basic tenets of calmness, gentleness, silence, self-restraint, purity. Disciplines of the mind, abandon all attachment to the results of an action and attain supreme peace.
That's probably the critical one.
Yeah. When you move amidst the world of sense, free from attachment and aversion alike, there comes the peace of which all sorrows end, and you live in the wisdom of the self. Whatever happened was good. What's happening? Whatever happened was good. What's happening? It's going well. Whatever will happen will also be good. You need to have...
This is fine.
Yeah, you need not have any regrets for the past. Do not worry for the future. Live in the present. That's again, I mean, these are all have similarities from Confucianism all the way to Stoicism.
Right.
And
across
those
two
who are
continents
motivated only by desire for the results of action are miserable, for they are constantly anxious about the results of what they do. Because you're worrying about stuff that's out of your control.
True story.
Reshape yourself through the power of will. Those who have conquered themselves live in peace, alike in cold and heat, pleasure and pain, praise and blame. To such people, a clod of dirt, a stone, and gold are the same. I don't know if
who wrote this.
I don't know if he intended to rhyme, but it sounds very cool.
I was wondering, is that not intended to rhyme? Is that yeah. I thought this was a paraphrase. Is this actual text?
It's a pretty cool thing. It's this Agbe Punjakar, chief writer for ACME.
Oh, well, that explains it.
To such, I love that. To such people, a clod of dirt, a stone, and gold are the same, because they are impartial. They rise to great heights.
That's deep. That's beyond.
Yeah, and so there's a kind of a... I don't know if linear is the right word. There's a consistent philosophical idea that's going across from
two continents.
Yeah, from
Asia to Europe,
East Asia, from southwestern Asia to the Mediterranean, and so it's to have that like just spontaneously come out of nowhere it's it's believable, but there's usually ideas like that are spread through things. And then one of the things that got this, the connection that I'm making is also that these all kind of Stoicism kind of might have come from this Hinduism and Zen Buddhist beginning. And my biggest connection was when I looked into like the physical, like the views of the physical world, the idea of the atom, space and time as a vacuum, wave theory, the slight swerve, pluralism, dualism, the observer effect.
Right.
These are all things that are discussed throughout, yet the only constant is that Zen Buddhism and Hinduism, we're talking about that stuff for 2,000 years before these ideas sprung out. So it would seem that that's the one commonality, is that you had that idea start here. Mm-hmm. The Persians were conquered and spreading things, and that those ideas got in, and it seems that they had a great influence on some of the Greek philosophers. And
that's a pretty wild timeline.
It is, and I was trying to, and like you're looking for connections, like we talked earlier. The brain's always looking for connections,
right?
But the more and more I read, in 570 or 600 BC, they had. And this is another crazy thing. Even as far back as then in these ancient civilizations, they had what's it called when another country has like an office in another country?
Embassy.
An embassy. They had embassies.
I thought of it.
Yeah. Good job.
That's bad.
So they had
like Jeopardy winner.
Persia had an embassy in Athens.
No kidding.
Yeah. And this is back in roughly 600 BC.
No shit.
So that was the first written accord I could find of people from the Persian Empire being in Athens, Greece.
That's crazy.
Or Greece proper. But there was, and then over the next 200 years, they would be there 3 more times in mass during the Greco-Persian Wars. Oh. And even at one time teaming up with, the story of 300?
Yes, I'm well familiar.
Persia. Yeah. So slightly after that, Persia was still pissed off at Athens from the first Persian invasion, the Battle of Marathon.
Right.
That we're all familiar with, where the guy ran all that ways, and where the name Marathon comes from.
Tidbit.
So, but I guess the distance he ran, was actually much greater than the distance of
more like an ultra marathon.
Yeah. There was
that's why he died right afterwards.
Yeah. And it was crazy too. He was running to go get help, and they ended up not even needing it.
Don't tell him that. That's terrible. His poor descendants.
Yeah. But anyway, it's the effort that matters. It's the thought that counts.
Sure, buddy.
But he ran like a motherfucker. He was so after the Battle of Thermopylae, a few decades later, Persia, which was still pissed off that the Athenians kicked their ass in the first invasion, which was crazy too. They were outnumbered like 3-1, and were going to be completely crushed. And so they sent this runner just wherever he was going to try to get help. I think it was Sparta. And Sparta was like, "Go fuck yourself." And but
such a shame. The
Athenians slaughtered, and this was Darius III, and slaughtered Darius III's armies, and he went back, and then they invaded again because Greece created what was like essentially like a United Nations kind of deal. Let's see if I wrote it down. Of course I didn't. Create like a united front against the Persian Empire, because they were the big kids on the block, and they were conquesting relentlessly. So they came in, and that's when the Peloponnesian War happened, and then about a decade later, Persia comes into Sparta and is like, hey, how would you guys like to fuck over Athens? And the Spartans, which had just, it seemingly had no love lost for the Persians, based, in the whole 300 thing.
Right.
They're like, yeah. So the Athens and Sparta had like a 27-year war that was fueled monetarily by the Persian Empire.
No
And
kidding.
eventually Sparta ended up taking Athens and subjugating it.
It's not at all how the movie went.
No! Yeah, you didn't see that one coming.
No, get in there.
That's what I was reading about it. I was like, that didn't happen. Yes, it did.
Given the Spartans' pride, right? They're like, wow. The
really
Athenians aren't warriors. And it's like, well, it took you 27 years to beat them, so...
Yeah.
Must have been pretty good.
Yeah, the whole thing, like it's funny just the liberties, the Hollywood takes, like the whole thing of like poets and boy lovers, that
Were they not?
Leonidas apparently famously said, the Athenians were pretty good fucking capable warriors.
Well, apparently.
Yeah, I mean,
It took the Spartans 27 years to beat them.
Yeah, it took Sparta 27 years to beat them.
Funded by a much larger empire.
Yeah, and they completely destroyed that empire decades earlier. But so there was going on. There was that influence where Persia was there, at least a few times in mass, and but yeah, so that's where I was kind of getting. I have no idea what point I was really making.
Now you know the history of Stoicism.
Yeah, so it just there's kind of about what was going on in the world at the time, and
It's good.
yeah, and so leading up to that, there was kind of what was going on in Greece, particularly around that same time. A couple guys were born, Cleisthenes and his brother. I love the names.
You can't pronounce them, dude.
Pilostridus, I think.
That's the one.
Okay, so Herodotus, which is a great Greek historian, which wrote of he's the one guy that kind of why we know so much about the Greco-Persian Wars and this stuff that I'm going to talk about now. He documented it all. He kind of wrote the histories of Athens and ancient Greece, and Athens had just come out of the Athens that we think of now with like giant monuments and pillars and stuff like that.
Right.
This was not that Athens. It was a big village essentially with a small palace on the top of the Parthenon, which was just a sheer-sided mountain kind of that just went up, a big hill basically, and very, very agrarian, not the bustling metropolis of ancient Greece that we know it of. And it was they were in a lot of turmoil. They're kind of in and out of ruled by tyrants and whatnot. And in a small break in that, this is kind of how easy it was to be a king if you wanted to.
Okay, go on.
Cleisthenes' stepbrother, Philostridus, rode into town with a tall woman who was later found out to be
a man.
Someone that lived in the neighboring village.
Oh, it wasn't
Not yet, Luke. That comes later.
I figured it was a man.
So you're on the right path, though. They literally just like trots into town with this. Historically, it said a giant woman, a very large. But
That's different than tall.
She lived in the village next over, and he had her dressed up, and he claimed that she was Athena, the patron goddess of the city. And
that was easy.
Yeah, and that he had her blessing, and that he was going to be their king. And the people. The fucking crazy thing is, that's not what they said. They're like, "Yay!"
Are you serious?
Yes. So
they just went for it.
Yeah, they just went for it. They're like, "That works." So he comes in,
just hungry for a king.
Yeah, and he comes in. And he kind of was in the history books. He's labeled a tyrant, but I believe a tyrant just in the sense of like I don't know if a tyranny, because it obviously comes from tyranny. I don't know if tyranny is always bad if it's like a good ruler. Or tyrannical rule. It seems to always be in poor connotations, but
I don't. I have to look up the definition. I always thought tyrannical meant you were bad to your own people.
Yeah, but he's labeled a tyrant, but he did he's literally the reason why Athens had a cultural and monetary explosion.
That is hard to justify. Yeah.
So he basically rides into town and says, like, guess what?
My wife's Athena.
Yeah. And you're all my subjects now.
And she'll crush you if you disagree.
And the people are like, yay. And there was much rejoicing.
Okay.
So he goes in and starts revolutionary programs. First of all, he started giving free loans to the farmers. That's
a good idea.
Yeah. And so what that did is their olive crops were huge,
right,
in the area, all throughout Greece.
Interest-free loans are quite the stimulus.
So he gave interest-free loans to all these farmers, and so that jacked up the olive production massively. And so that allowed them to start trading and expanding their trade partners. And that brought tons of money and tons of new cultural influence into the city of Athens. And so things were booming in Athens, new buildings were getting built, the economy was amazing. This seeming jackass that just rode into town is a pretty great fucking ruler. Seems to be really fair, sort of reorganized the penal codes and stuff at the time to be a little more humane. And of course, one of his subjects starts to get jealous of it, and he trots down to Sparta and like, hey, how would you like to fucking kill this guy? And I'll give you some ways to do it, and you let me kind of be co-ruler with you guys, and we'll be like one of your like fucking, butt boy fucking towns, whatever.
That's quite the sell.
It's the wrong choice of words, but anyway. So that happens. The Spartans come up. They surround this guy in his palace, and they put him into exile. And his brother, stepbrother, Cleisthenes, who is a lawyer, they exile as well. I think it was every aristocratic family, essentially, in town. Anyone that could have any hold to power was banished.
It's like Russia 4,000 years later.
Yeah.
Or 2,000, whatever.
So the people, after a while, they kind of go through this, and then the peasants have an uprising and overthrow the Spartans and this fucking jackass of an account.
The Spartans were overthrown by peasants?
Yeah. So this
is not at all the movie.
This legend of them being like these, which I'm sure they were ferocious warriors and stuff like that. But
I wouldn't fight them.
Yeah, the legend is getting less and less mythical with.
We got beat by peasants and poets and boy lovers.
The more stuff we find out, and kind of a side note, it's
this whole thing is a side note.
Yeah, I know. I can't just stay on because there's so many cool things.
It's not negative. I'm just
saying. Going on. It was I've been speaking of kind of the battles and fighting and stuff like that. I was thinking the other day because my workout regimens have gotten more into functional kind of battle training, using maces and hammers, and I just got these things that are called they're what Hindu and Buddhist monks would use. They're called Indian battle clubs, and they're anywhere from 10 to 20 pound club, and the weight's distributed really weird, so they feel way heavier. Just because of how it's distributed, but that's what they would use to fight and shit.
Right.
So in using it, I just got my clubs. I've been using the maces and hammers for a while, but just got the clubs the other day and did an hour-long workout with them. That was 3 days ago. I am still so fucking sore.
Really?
Yeah. Well, it's just your fucking grip, your biceps, your triceps, your shoulders, just removing, doing a swing and a lunge. My ass was cramping up last night at work. And I'm thinking this is fucking crazy because on on these massive conquests and battles, you would have guys swinging like these Greek and Roman short swords. They probably weighed 5 to 7 pounds, and a shield, and us and swinging and moving and doing that for days.
Just the pinnacle of human effort.
Like the level, like, and that's why I kind of think like a lot of the, because there you start to seeing like a lot of like anatomical changes in art and musculature and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And some of those like the statue depictions like in Rome and Greece, and the bodies of people like looking like
just
the bodies
jacked.
of God. Yeah. And I was starting to think like that's believable.
Yeah.
Like
yeah,
if you
trained
were
for that?
if you were like a career soldier,
I
could like you'd probably be fucking like ripped to fucking shreds.
well, I would assume so.
Yeah. So I mean, anyway, just a side note. Like I did that for roughly an hour taking breaks. So it's
basically
like
nothing at
so
all.
like it's basically every time you think you're hard, you're not. Yeah.
Well, dude, that's so true.
The ancients always fucking got it on you.
Dude, not even the ancients, but like anybody.
Yeah, literally anybody.
Like
Exactly.
from the 1700s, 1800s, and 1900s. We don't do anything that's hard anymore. We're
It's
we're just
relatively
soft
speaking.
but overnourished.
Yeah. Relatively speaking, nothing is hard anymore.
The millennials just signed up.
Yeah, dealing with other people is hard, and that's what brings us to this philosophical talk. You know,
Because you can't just kill them.
right? And so sorry about that tangent. There'll be more.
No, it was good.
Don't worry.
We're fine.
Cleisthenes, after the uproar, the people sought him out to come back and be their ruler, and that was about 570 BC, and he did tons of stuff.
So they sought out the tyrant to be the ruler.
His tyrant's brother, his brother-in-law. Excuse me.
Oh,
I think the tyrant might have been killed in the Farrakis. Is that a word, or did I just make that up?
Doesn't matter.
Okay. So he was banished. They brought him back to be the ruler, and Cleisthenes did some fucking amazing things. Again, did tons of completely reformed the Athenian constitution, basically rewrote it, and created democracy.
That guy did.
Cleisthenes created democracy. He started up the deal with the gathering of a group of representatives from the town, and they would vote on everything with I think it was like a black shard of pottery or a light shard of pottery, and literally everything was voted on. It was like kind of like how a small town is run now,
Right.
sort of.
But a whole country.
Yeah, well, yeah, city-state. This is, and at this time, I think Athens had a population of about 100,000 people.
That's a small town.
Which, yeah, huge for ancient standards.
Yeah.
Later on, Rome at its peak hit roughly 1 million, which was twice as big as any other city in the known world at the time.
Yeah, that's pretty big.
Yeah, but along with that came some massive fucking problems that we'll touch on when we get to Marcus Aurelius.
Right.
We have so far to go.
I'll be honest, we're not going to make it.
I
We're
know.
not gonna make
This
it.
is going to have to
We
be
probably need another drink.
This is going to have to be a multiple-parter.
Sure. Yeah, you want to take a pause for a drink real quick, and then we'll come back to it?
Let's take a quick commercial break. And so you guys enjoy this message from our sponsor, and we'll be right back.
Cheers. We're well into the realm of unplanned at this point.
Yeah, there's just so much. Especially going into like the history, there's just so much shit.
Well, it's all actually interesting. That's the problem. What the hell happened to school? Why is school so boring? And then you hit 20 and it's almost like child labor should be a thing. Like we should make kids work, and then when they hit 20, like let them stop working and go to school. That's a terribly
Because they just
unpopular
want
idea.
you to do like, and that I guess that is the benefit of college. Like you can take, like some of the most interesting classes I took were like of specific periods of not just Roman history, but a specific period of Roman history or a specific period of Greek history.
Isn't it odd that?
Oh,
Yeah. Isn't it odd that like when you're in grade school, history is broken up into U.S. history and world history, and that's it. Like just those two.
And it's like you can't. This is important stuff that you can't just glaze over. Like with Cleisthenes and like ancient Greece, like you might go like, okay, like, and the ancient Greeks created democracy. Yeah, well, okay, what was going on? Why,
that was the end of it. That was all you learned.
Why did they do it? Because it was ruled by fucking tyrants that did whatever the fuck they wanted to.
Right.
And so it was like there's a point of it. I guess we're podcasting again.
Oh yeah, we're well back.
Shit,
we've been back for a minute.
So all that stuff is just fucking. It's important to get like bigger picture things. Like democracy was born because people finally got fed up with not having a fucking say in their own future.
Isn't it odd that it was such a popular idea for so long? Like people were completely okay with that for thousands of years. Like Bob says it's okay, so.
Yeah, like, cause I can only assume that it was not uncommon for some guy to just trot in on a horse and being like, I am your king now. And people just be going like, I'm going to die at 25 anyways.
Right. I've only got 8 years left on this world.
Yeah, because there was another thing. Like, it was a pretty cool documentary. I got a lot of this stuff. Well, probably 3 different documentaries. I got most of the stuff on ancient Greece. And then this cool deal on Hellenistic philosophy. But talking about like it was rare for someone to live past the age of 15 in Athens at that time. Like it was not a pretty sight. In ancient Rome wasn't either. Like it was. This guy talks about. And we're bouncing around so much.
I love that. I just go with it. I'm
in ancient Rome, the guy mentions the things that were most common. He calls them the 5 Fs: flood, fire, filth, famine, and fever. You had ancient Rome. Obviously, it was the biggest city in the known world at the time. Incredibly condensed. People living on top of each other. Very little. They had sewers, but the sewers were for water drainage because Rome was built on a floodplain, which a lot of people don't tell you either. So the every time the river flooded, nearly 3/4 of Rome would be in several feet of water unless you lived on a hill, which is why most palaces and most important buildings are on raised ground. So if you were poor, and if you were poor, and this is kind of where the poorest people got it good because they had to live on the top floors of places because it was less convenient because you had your big clay jar that you pissed and shit in that you had to carry down all the way to the bottom floor.
Okay.
But most of the time, people would look out. They would have a lookout, and they would see if anyone was looking, and then they'd either throw their jar or dump it off, which was also one of the leading causes of death, of people getting hit in the head and killed by jars full of shit and piss. So,
that's got to be top 10 worst ways to go.
So that was all being dumped in the street. There's a estimate of roughly 150 dead bodies a day that were left in the streets. So thousands per year. And they would just decompose, and like dogs and like rodents and stuff like that would eat. And they'd just be decomposing out like in the alleys or on the sides of the street, just pushed aside.
No.
Yeah. The streets, which we see in like books, is like paved and stuff like that, was most likely a mix of mud and human feces.
Because shit makes great bricks.
That's actually
where the brick shit house came from.
Yeah, probably.
I made it up. No, that's a
I
lie.
know, but
there's no source.
No, it's 100% true. It's.
I'm gonna need sources for all of this, by the way.
But this particular, if you guys want to get on, this is more than happy to share the source. It's another one of the great courses.
People were killed by falling buckets of shit.
Yeah, not just killed, but one of the leading causes of death.
It's like cancer, but in Rome.
The royalty was carried around not because they thought they were above people. They were carried around because the streets were essentially covered in shit, like in mud.
Oh my god!
Yeah,
and people chose to live there.
Oh, they had no choice. It was either that or be a farmer on the outskirts. But if you lived in metropolitan Rome, you did your fucking job, and most of the Romans lived in apartments, and those apartments were a big box that didn't have a kitchen, and so it wasn't uncommon to build a fire on the floor.
Are we talking about San Francisco or Rome?
Rome. Yeah,
I'm joking.
I know. But that's like one of the ridiculous things. Like this guy is going into like really in depth shit about like it's not like this. The golden age of Rome was. It's like it's not how it's. It's not how you envision it because that's not how anyone's taught it.
No, because it's not glamorous at that point.
No, it's not fucking glamorous at all. There's not like there's the Roman bathhouses were one of the most frequent places where diseases would be transmitted because everyone would bathe there, and doctors' recommendations to people with any ailment like worms, boils, lesions, anyone was to go and take a long soak in the baths. So now all that water was naturally heated by springs, so you have a lukewarm to warm damp environment, which is the best environment ever for bacteria. And people are just fucking going in there every fucking day. Yeah.
And the doctors are recommending it. It's almost like profiteering.
Yeah, it's fucking crazy. Well, I mean, their levels of medicine were, I mean, besides Hippocrates, who was kind of like the forefather of modern medicine. Besides him, no one was doing anything great, really. I guess Hippocrates is kind of where the Hippocratic Oath for physicians comes from, and he did, as far as anatomy and physiology, way ahead of his time. Mm-hmm. But besides his, physicial knowledge, no one else was doing anything close to that.
Just sending people to the cesspool.
Sterile technique and stuff like that wasn't coming about for probably another 1,000 years. Just about. Actually, yeah, it was probably about 1900 when that stuff started to be used. And it's funny. This is when birth rates started to actually skyrocket, or birth mortality rates started to actually skyrocket around the turn of the century. It was common practice for doctors to perform autopsies and then go deliver children. So whatever the person died of, they didn't wash their hands. Yeah. So babies and mothers were dying at an insane rate, just like they had all through history. Mm-hmm. And so one guy finally came up with it to fucking wash your hands in between performing an autopsy and delivering a child. And all of a sudden birth rates. Yeah. Isn't that crazy?
No kidding.
That's fucking crazy. You just think that my hands were in shit. Now they're not, and now I'm gonna stick them in some it just.
You just shouldn't.
I feel like you don't even need to know a lot to know that that's fucking not the best practice.
Isn't that the purpose of urea? Is so you don't drink urine? Like the smell that urine is like unpleasant is the chemical urea, which makes you think, I shouldn't drink this.
I would assume that that there's probably that's one of those odd things that naturally occurs to give you pause before you might do it.
But human shit, you're like, it's fine.
Or blood and guts of someone that just you were working on that has the plague. Or the number of diseases. I read down some of them, but hepatitis was a huge one. malaria, which normally wouldn't kill you, but since they said the average Roman was probably carrying at least 4 to 5 parasites, worms, at any given time. And so malaria, which doesn't normally kill somebody and isn't really even that prevalent in the Mediterranean, because of all the filth that's surrounding Rome. Obviously, there are tons of mosquitoes and bugs because of that. So during August to October, which is height of malaria season, you would see a massive rise in mortality rates. So malaria was killing Romans at I think they said about 30, in a city of 1 million, about 30,000 people were dying a year of disease.
That's a lot.
Yeah. So it seems to be
3%?
A fairly high percent.
Every year?
Yeah, every year. But, not the beautiful places that our history classes pointed out to be. And
but I've seen Gladiator.
Yeah, the craziest ones were like all the floods, like super common that would happen. They said like a minor flood about once every 3 years, a major flood, which would cover the majority of the city, about once every 5.
Who built a city there?
Well, that's all cities were close to bodies of water.
Oh yeah, you had
and especially for how the Romans' sewer system works, or the aqueducts, it had to be close to some free flowing body of water to take advantage of the river,
right?
Because most of their aqueducts started at the river at its higher elevation. And so in order for their systems of drainage and stuff like that, it kind of had to be. And then most civilizations are also, but most of the time they don't do it on the floodplain of the river, because rivers have areas that are floodplains and areas that aren't. And they built Rome on a marsh, so it made about as much sense as New Orleans. which
is also
think they would have learned something after 2,000 years.
Nothing.
No,
nothing at all.
Not a goddamn thing.
Nothing at all.
This would make a great port. Fuck it.
Well, enough about Stoicism. You want to break this off into
parts
parts
yeah.
two?
So, guys, there's so much to talk about. We're going to do a couple parts.
Maybe a few. I don't know.
Yeah, this could be like a series.
It probably should be. This might be all of season 2.
So, I'm not promising we'll be more organized with our thoughts next time, but
I promise we won't.
But I can promise you we'll at least start on the topic.
And not fucking ghosts.
Yeah, but well, speak for yourself.
Okay.
But thanks for joining us, guys, and welcome to season 2.
Season 2, episode 1.
Bored to Death. We're doing it.
Cheers. Thanks
We're
for joining
doing
us.
it.
All right. Cheers.
All right.
Till next time.